You have quorum now.
We have 5.
Great.
We need one more.
Hey, Julia.
Hey, Counselor, how are you?
Excellent. Merry Christmas.
You too. How late did you guys go last night?
Only till 8. We had reserved Friday if we were going to go OT, and it was the call of a number of counselors to just recess until tomorrow.
Great.
Basically, we're just the in-camera portion, which is maybe a whole day too. So it was a long one.
Yeah, always is the last one of the year.
Yeah, and going into summer, exactly. All you great staffers try to throw all the files at us so you don't feel guilty.
Not me.
No, you got yours in last month. I saw
That's
that.
right.
2 in
That's
a row.
right.
Well, it might be a very short meeting, folks. We don't have.
You just gained quorum, Counselor.
Perfect. All right. Thank you very much, Stu. Good to see everyone. Nice to see everybody. Steve, everybody. It's been a while. Let's get right to it then. I'm just trying to get the run sheet, and for now, I'll just. I see that you've emailed it to me, Carrie, but I'm just going to go off the agenda. Looking first to approve the agenda. Moved by Stu, seconded by Steve. That okay? All in favor? It's a show of hands. Thank you, committee members. Any declarations of interest? I do not see any declarations of interest. Approval of the meeting previous, way back November 12, 2020, about a year ago, moved by Carrie, seconded by Susie. All in favor? Show of hands is good. No communications, no delegation requests, no consent items or hearings and delegations. Staff are present. We'll introduce them as needed and thank them before the meeting's out for sure. But before we get to the order of discussion items, Frank Miscioni, Inspector Miscioni, was kind enough to step in last minute, took the call last night, but has to run to other business. So I'm wondering if someone would be kind enough to move the police update 10.4 to the top of the discussion items, given the circumstances. Moved by Steve, seconded by Stu. All in favor? Carried. So Frank, you're here for a general police update. We appreciate it in advance and a couple of Q&As, and then you can fly. You can just tune out. So thanks again for joining us.
Yeah, it's my pleasure. Thank you, everyone. And I want to also acknowledge that we have another colleague of mine, my crime manager, Dave, right here as well. So he can certainly stick around and answer some questions afterwards and help me out. My name is Frank Miscioni. I'm the inspector for the Community Mobilization Division in Central. So we work out of Central. However, the Community Mobilization Division has got a lot of different tentacles to it. The one you've probably heard of the most is our action unit. We also have our the response unit, which is a crisis response unit, which includes our SMP, our COAST, our MCERT, and we have victim services. We have the mounted unit. We have crime prevention unit, youth coordinator, our LGBTQS liaison officer, and our community relations coordinator, and our crime stoppers. So that's the entire unit. However, I'm not going to focus on all of that today. I think what people are looking for here is more of a downtown focus in terms of what police are doing, what police have done, and where we lie in that. So I will tell you right off the bat that our stats, which I'm going to share with you in just a few minutes, are going to be skewed due to COVID from 2020 to 2021. We were much more out and about, and people were much more out and about in 2021. So we do have increased stats, but they're quite a bit increased. When I show you them, you'll see them. However, that is partially due to COVID in terms of that nobody was really out and about in 2020. The other piece of it too is that I want to mention that our action team, our social navigator team, are very, very involved on a daily basis with our encampments in the city. And when I say involved, I say that they're doing outreach. They're working with the members in those encampments and looking to place them in housing, find them shelter, find them some sort of alternative place to live. So that happens on a daily basis. The action team comes in when the MLE in the city work towards a clear out of an encampment, and it works through stages. So it'll be stage 1 to 5, and stage 5 is where we step in after all exhaustive efforts have been done, and the police will come in, and our role there would be a trespass to property act. However, I can say, and from the great work from Kelly Burnett, who's on this call, that we've never had to actually lay hands on anybody in an encampment to date. They've all complied with our direction when we come into the encampment and we say we need to find alternative housing, shelter, and this is not just showing up the day of. We've worked with these people for months and months and months and months, and we give them notice, and there's a lot of concurrent disorders going on in these encampments. So the processing and the ability to understand and work through a process is something that takes a long time. And our social navigator group, I'll give them tons of credit, along with city outreach and as well as the MLE group. They work tirelessly every single day behind the scenes, working with people in encampments, trying to get them to move on. And I understand, and I totally get the two sides of that. There's a side that looks like nothing's being done, and there's a side that we see that that tremendous amount of work is being done, but there's always a void, and when that void is empty, something else gets filled. So it's frustrating from our point of view, because we do want to take a humanitarian approach and really do care about these people in these encampments that are very vulnerable. And at the same time, we understand the pressures from the constituents and the businesses and the councillors and the city to say we need these out of our parks so people can enjoy the parks as regular citizens. There's that dichotomy there that we have to balance, and I think that we've done a decent job of it so far. It's not perfect, and we've made mistakes along the way, and we all know through media and everything else that we're in the hot seat right now, quite frankly. However, I won't get into that details. What I can share with you, and I'm going to try to share a screen here, is our action stats from this past year, actually over 2 years. So let me just share this. And somebody sees it up on their screen, if they can verify that it's there.
Inspector, your screen is shared.
Perfect, thank you. I'll just go to type of presentation mode. So this is our annual, it's our monthly reporting that goes to the chief's office. This is not something that we can't share with everybody, and we can work through this. So when we talk about action, arrests, and charges in November of 2021, so these are our most recent stats. If you're looking at the chart on the left there, the top left in the red, you'll see our cumulative arrests over year to date 2021 and 2020. If you just look at the far right in November, we're at 991 arrests in 2021, and as I said before, 370 in 2020, and that's not all a result of COVID, but it is a significant contribution to COVID. Generally, those stats are not that skewed, but it's just because of people out and about. And then charges, the same thing in the bottom left, you'll see the blue. We see 1,334 charges versus 704 charges in 2020. As I move forward here, we'll get into a bit more details. So where were those arrests made? We're talking about 819 in the top left there, the bar slide, 819 in Division 1, which would encompass the downtown core, and 131 in Division 2 and 53 in Division 3. So the majority of our work is done in the central division. And even that, breaking that down, is in the central core. So what does that look like? We're talking about Controlled Drugs and Substances Act. We're at 423 arrests. Just of note with that topic is that the safe consumption site is being moved, and actually is moved now to a different location from where it was at John and Rebecca. So it'll be on James Street North at basically at Hunter. I think it was Hunter, and it's a church there, the Philpott Church. So, sorry, not the Philpott Church, I don't remember the church's name, but it's on James Street North across from the YMCA. So we do see some spill out from the safe consumption sites. It's not something that is a surprise to anybody, that we do see people using in and around the area, as opposed to taking advantage of the services that are inside the building. You also see failed to complies and breaches is quite low, actually. It's 20 versus 11 in the second row down. And then warrants is 407 versus 123. So we do see a higher number of people wanted and with warrants out in the community. And I would say this is more than we would have had if this was year to year without COVID. So 123 probably would have been around 200, but because there's more people out and about, we're seeing an extended high number there. And other arrests could be many things. It could be impaired. It could be many different type of criminal arrests. And we have 155 versus 73. So that's essentially a quick, short breakdown of what the arrests look like. All of our officers, when they're deployed in the action unit, they all are deployed with GPS units. And all those GPS units are downloaded every single shift. And when they're downloaded, they're uploaded to our analyst department, and our analysts then take that data and plot it on a map. So this is several, like almost a year's worth, or monthly, sorry, this is 1 month of deployment for the action unit. It creates cookie trails, and it looks like they're just driving around in the streets. But when we get into the quadrants, this is where I wanted to emphasize this, is you'll see the bluish area in the middle is that their action officers are concentrating most of their efforts in the core. What it doesn't show you is more of a heat map as far as how much time they're spending in those little dots. Those are cookie trails as they move. So if the cookie trail is in one spot and it's pinging continuously, it would just leave one dot there. So there could be times where they spend a lot of time in Gore Park or in Beasley Park or different areas within the core, and it wouldn't be reflected in terms of the time stamp. So when I look at this map here, I wanted to show you that you'll see the quadrants on the kind of the top left there. The whole thing looks like looks almost purplish, but the most of our time, when you break this down, just to give you a quick overview of this, is you'll see quadrant A is of the 5 quadrants in Central is probably one of the least of the activated or attended areas, but quadrant D and B are the most attended. So what that is, in normal speak, I guess you can say, would be quadrant B is Bay Street to James Street, and then it goes from Cannon to Hunter Street. So you can see where it kind of envision where that is. The most time is spent in quadrant D, and quadrant D goes from essentially Wellington Street, it's actually West Avenue, right over to John, and then from the lower part of Hunter up to Cannon. So that encompasses most of the core. B encompasses the King and James area, but D is most of the downtown BIA in those areas. So a majority of our time, although this is not a great map to show that, I wanted to highlight that if you're looking just at the quadrants in Central, a majority of time is spent in quadrant B. And then E, just to give you reference points, goes from West Avenue to Sanford and from Cannon to Main Street. When we look at BIA visits, so we do track that with our officers, and we verify that through the GPS after when they report they visited the BIAs, and then we verify that the track and the cookie trail from GPS correlates. So we do have, I mean, I'm not going to go through every single number here, but you can see that probably a majority of our time is spent in the Barton Village, downtown, International Village, King Street West, Locke, and Main Street. So mostly in the central division, what we consider the central division of the city. And then when we talk about mounted, they do the same thing. They have the GPSs and they have their visits tracked as well. And they would probably spend more than 60% of their time between King Street, Main Street, International Village, and downtown. And most of the time, the mounted unit are deployed from Central here. We do have the stalls at the back of the station, and they drive down here and then deploy from there. Traditionally, mounted was very heavily involved in Hess Village. However, in the last few years, that has not been the case, just mainly because of COVID. However, Hess Village is not an area of concern as much as it was 2 to 3, probably more 4 or 5 years ago. That gives you a broad overview of what we're talking about here. So I'm just going to end this slideshow and stop sharing my.
I think you just signed off. We missed you. Your last sentence went kind of muddy there, Frank.
Okay, can you hear me now? Can you still hear me?
Just
okay,
your
you
last
can see
sentence.
me. I'm not sharing anymore.
Okay, that's all. That's great. Thank you. And Dave, thank you. I missed you there in the top right corner, my top right, but thank you as the crime manager for attending as well. Stu,
I'm
you're
open to a
first.
couple questions, Counselor, if you'd like that. I have about 5 or 6 more minutes before I have to be at another meeting at 10 o'clock for the Grey Cup. However, I'm open to some questions if there is.
Frank, former linebacker, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, sir.
Stu, you're first.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Oski Wee. So through the chair, just a question for Inspector Moscone. I'm just curious, in the other arrests category that you talked about in a couple of your slides, have you seen any kind of trend that in how those are distributed, like whether there's an increase in, property, property related things like thefts and break B&Es or violent attacks? Has there been any kind of noticeable change?
So that's a good question, Stu. And I would say in the action reports, no, because they generally aren't first responders that deal with those type of calls in residential areas. Action is more of a team that's in the high populated areas, for lack of a better term. So a uniform patrol response and/or the crime managers through Dave may be able to give you a different answer with the breaking enters to cars, breaking enters to houses, those kind of call, or even nuisance calls like noise complaints and things like that, where the action unit would not necessarily be responding to that. If there was another increase, it would probably be around the Salvation Army, library, those kind of areas, because that tends to be the areas they hang out more. John and Rebecca at the park there across from the former safe consumption site, and now of course at Whitehern, YWCA, they spend a lot of time in those areas.
Anything else, Stu?
Yeah, so I just was curious too whether you've seen any instances of kind of anti-vaxxers or any issues with, protests or congregations of folks, and that's something that you've had to deal with.
So yes, that answer is yes. At City Hall, as we all know, the forecourt of City Hall seems to be the gathering place for many protests. When officers are deployed to City Hall for any protest, and recently it has been the anti-vax protest, action is the ones that get deployed. So they're the ones that are dealing with that group. We can say that we monitor that group through our intelligence branch quite strongly. There's a few groups we monitor and that tend to protest and/or have demonstrations. We have decent relationships with those people, and we had the big, huge protest. I'm going to say probably a month and a half ago or so in downtown core, and it was the anti-vaxxer group, and it shut down the core for a number of hours. So we haven't seen the large protests like that recently. However, that group is still gaining strength, and they're still out there. The good thing is about 90% of Ontarians are fully vaccinated, so we're talking about a small group.
Great, thank you. And as a resident of the core, thank you for all you do.
Thank you, Stu. Executive Director, International Village BIA, Susie.
Just one thing to put on your radar and just to ask, are you still ticketing tractor trailers coming through downtown on King? We've seen an influx of them lately, and it's been quite disruptive. I was on CH a couple weeks ago, and one went right by during the filming of it. So just curious if that's still something that you guys are looking at.
So I know that not from my group specifically. However, I can tell you that Dave's group and through the crime manager's office, through the uniform patrol and through traffic branch, do monitor that. And there is pop projects that they do on a regular basis. So I will defer that question to him once I leave, and then when he gets a chance to speak, he can refer to that.
Okay. Just wanted to put it on your radar more than anything, that it's becoming an issue again. So yeah.
And we just had that recently with the city in terms of defining where the truck routes are. So that was hot topic news just recently.
Yeah. Okay, thanks.
You're aware of where that went with the truck route subcommittee, Susie? We referred the report back, and mostly the sentiment around the room was, let's get the trucks out of the core and just use the perimeter road, save and except for, of course, important deliveries to our BIAs and businesses and so forth. So the staff are working that, hashing that out now, which would make things, I would hope, a little bit easier, Frank, for your new, I'll say still new traffic safety division, or enhanced traffic safety division. All right, Susie, is that it for you?
Yeah, that's it.
Okay. Anybody else? I'm looking at the, Paula, hi.
Oh, you're on mute,
You're
Paula.
muted. No, still muted, Paula. Still muted. You'll figure it out. I know you will. Anybody know how to read lips?
McIntosh here. She doesn't appear to be muted, but I'm not quite sure.
Yeah, her audio is not working.
Did you want to change your microphone settings, maybe? If you go into the WebEx and switch audio or speaker and microphone settings.
In the meantime, Frank,
So it looks like she has a question about panhandlers in the street.
Oh, great. Okay.
So yeah, Paula, that's an issue that we've been and crossing traffic in intersections, and we've seen that for quite a while, and we've been dealing with that for ever since I was a crime manager in 2007. That's been an issue in the core. It seems to be specific to certain areas, and our take on that is that if they're not being aggressive, then there's really nothing we can do about them. However, when they do become aggressive, we do try to address that. Our action officers and downtown core officers, they know these people fairly well, and I drive through the downtown every single day because I work in central headquarters. So I see the same people every single day, and we know exactly who they are and where they'll be at what time of day. So far, that yes, there is a concern for me that they do walk in between the cars and out of traffic. We did have a gentleman a number of years ago, I'm dating myself here a little bit, that was run over by a bus trying to do that and ended up losing one of his legs. However, it's one of those situations where we have to respond and deal with the person. Is it going to solve the problem? Because they make a tremendous amount of money. The one guy we pull over, it was about 3 or 4 months ago, and he had $700 in his pocket from panhandling. So it's not going to deter them for us going and giving them a $65 ticket for aggressive panhandling. So it's one of those working things that we work through the crime managers. We get the information. I encourage people to still call in about it. Generally call about the intersection because they generally stay at the same intersections. They have kind of their territory they live in or area they are.
Social navigators in the past were very helpful too, getting some of those folks back on track. Paula, you have 2 more questions. Give me a thumbs up if that was an answer to your first question on panhandlers. Was that good? Okay. All I'm reading is your headers. That's all I have right now, unless your audio is working again. Crossing traffic. Just give me a nod, yes or no, if you mean pedestrians. Safety when crossing at a traffic intersection or between intersections? Is it at an intersection?
I think she meant that it was the panhandlers crossing through.
Oh, I see. Sorry, and bike lanes too. So it was all part of the one. Oh, you answered that then. Thank you, Frank. Anything else, Paula? If you can, just write it in the chat. And for now, if there's anyone else, and I can come right back to you, Paula. Is there anyone else with a question? Can Susie take the chair for just a moment? Real quick, Frank, is the YWCA area special policing enforcement team still doing their thing there, or is that elapsed? I know was it last month you started that program?
Yeah, that was actually through Dave Wright's office, and that is a central project that's a high enforcement area in the White Hearn, the McNabb Street Tunnel, and the YWCA, and of course extending over to the YMCA. That is all still up and running, and I believe it's going to be extended. And I'll let Dave answer that one as well, because that is a central devised and run project. We assist in that as an action group, but we're not running the project.
Gotcha. So tell you what, Frank, thanks very much. Get to your Great Cut meeting because there's no other questions, and Dave can answer this one and probably others if they do come. Okay.
Yeah. If there's any follow-up or questions you have for me, I'm more than willing to answer that at any time. So you can always follow up afterwards.
Go Tigers, as Stu has said already. Dave, can you give us some details on that special project area?
Yes, I can actually. So thanks for having me, folks. So my name's Dave Wright. I'm an acting sergeant in the crime manager's office. I'm responsible for multiple areas. I also have a couple of colleagues that work with me. So that specific project is being run by one of my colleagues, acting sergeant Kim Harvey. So it is in response to a higher number of calls that we received in the area, and not only just at the YWCA, but also White Hearn, the McNabb Street Tunnel, that whole general area. And now that's also going to be affected by the new CTS site as it's just moved. So it's now moved over to, I believe it's St. Paul's Church at the corner of James and Jackson. So that's going to be a flux of people now into the area. From what I understand, that project was only supposed to run for a month, but it has been extended. We've been spending a lot of time. I don't have the stats on me specifically, but I can get those from Sergeant Harvey. And I think, I'm not sure when it's going to be running until, but when everything is all said and done, I'd be more than happy to get those numbers together and the amount of police interactions we had there, the number of checks or arrests, tickets, that kind of stuff. That's not a problem at all. But yeah, so one of the things that we are responsible for in our office, it's a multitude of things. It's kind of tough to describe it, but so like I'm in touch a lot with Susie. I'm responsible for the international BIA, so a lot of the issues that she has, she'll reach out to me, and then I'll try to figure out what's the best way that we can respond to that. Is it something that we can put a special attention out to our officers? Do we need a lot more resources and have a dedicated project? So we've run quite a few projects this year in regards to stuff going on in the downtown area. We noticed earlier in the year there was a spike in break and enters, so we had a project designed for bail condition enforcement on specific B&E offenders. We've run a project involving our bait bike, which is very successful. Projects involving certain areas of the city that include, like, for example, the Salvation Army was one. The area around King and Caroline, some of the stuff that goes on there at the Tim Hortons and the Vita Lapita, that area. And again, you know, we get a lot of complaints, like the question earlier about panhandlers and whatnot. So yeah, it's one of those things that we get notified a lot of the issues going on, and then we kind of put the think tank together and try to figure out what the best way is to go about solving them.
I know our BIAs always ask how they can help, not just present the problems, but they're always offering their assistance, and I know you welcome that, and that's a really good piece. And I'm glad you concluded with, you know, that's part of the team. I'm sure you appreciate, Dave. Thanks very much. Also, I wanted to mention, my bad for sort of mixing up your Evite for this meeting. I went after Frank on Carrie's behalf yesterday, but I'll make sure I deal with you directly for the agenda next time, okay? And I'm not knocking Carrie there. I just didn't deal with him directly at all. So that's it. I don't see any more questions on the police update, unless I'll take one more quick look. Doesn't look like anything. And so I don't know, I'm at the mercy of committee folks if we think we still need our crime manager for 10-1 through, 10-6, save for 10-4, or do we let him hit the mean streets? What does anybody think we require, Dave, further for any of I think Frank covered what policing comments could be on the encampments already, and graffiti, I'm sure will be handled by staff appropriately. They are here, so I say we cut them loose. It is Christmas. Are you okay with that, folks? Dave, thank you.
All right, thanks again for having me, folks. And same as with Inspector Michioni, if you need to reach out to me, you can do so. Susie's got my email address, as does Councillor Farr. So feel free to reach out. I'm more than happy to further conversations about things.
Thanks very much. Kelly,
Perfect.
I thought you were retired. 10.2 is the encampment update, but oh, sorry, 10.1. Kelly, you're still retired. 10.1 first, cleanliness and an issue at Ferguson Station. Whose file is this one? Oh, Susie, hi. Go ahead.
Hi, I just wanted to bring this to the committee just to fill you guys in on a big issue that we've been having at Ferguson Station that Dave is aware of also. I just wanted to make sure that it was noted. So we've had issues at Ferguson Station starting back in the spring. It is I guess where I'm frustrated is it needs to be a priority city asset at this point in time. It's affecting the surrounding businesses negatively, some of the stuff going on there at night. There's a lot of littering, a lot of loitering, a lot of dumped garbage. There's somebody cutting down pieces of the trees at Ferguson Station. Our mural there, which recently won a big award, has been tagged 3 times. Right now it's currently tagged and we're having a hard time getting that fixed. Unfortunately, in the summer, there was a lot of issues with the smell of human feces and urine and vomit, and we were dealing with that daily. Probably the biggest business that's been affected negatively there is Shakespeare's, because they back right onto the space that people are loitering in. And again, Dave's really been good at working with the owners there, but unfortunately the problem doesn't seem to be getting fixed. they last week had copper wiring stole off their building, which caused a power outage. Right now, they're trying to recoup money that they've lost from COVID. They were forced several times throughout the summer to close down their patio, which again backs right onto Ferguson Station because of what was going on there. And we've been having a hard time managing this. We have been in talks with ECDev, so Norm Schlehan and Judy Lamb are very aware of these problems, as is Julia, and we've been having constant communications with them for that. Also, I would just like to ask that it become more of a priority asset for the city. The weeding this year wasn't done very well. And really, it'd just be nice if we could have daily services there. That would be awesome. Another issue that we're having there that's a bit of a sensitive topic that I've been a little bit worried to talk about is that on Wednesday nights, there is a very large soup kitchen that's operating there. We understand the need for that in our community. Unfortunately, I think this soup kitchen has become way too big for this area. They were operating, as far as I know, for a couple years. It was a smaller operation. We've never been able to find out who it is. They don't want to talk to the BIA. There's been no communications between us. But during COVID, at one point in time, I know the businesses were reporting to me there was as many as 200 people there, not wearing masks necessarily. They leave their garbage. It's become a bit of an environmental issue because they're destroying the pavement and the bricks on the ground because of the grease from, I guess, their barbecues or something that they're bringing in. They have a loudspeaker that operates that has been disrupting Shakespeare's patio, and the residents have been complaining to me. And as far as I know, they don't operate through a seat application, which is concerning to me because there's no public health involved. And, you know, if I do an event at Ferguson Station, I have to go through the proper processes because it is a city event. So I'm not sure how that's happening, but I understand the need again my board understands the need for this, but we just think this has become a little bit too big for this area, and maybe the city could possibly look at relocating this soup kitchen. But yeah, there's lots of issues at Ferguson Station that I just wanted noted on the record that definitely need to be addressed and are definitely negatively affecting the businesses, especially in this area. I know the building that we're in, he's close to that. We've had to, invest in cameras, and he's also had copper wiring stole off his building and whatnot. So it is spilling out over into the area. And on any given night, you can drive down here and see people loitering over there. And we're just kind of concerned with winter coming as to what's going to happen. I think the biggest victim in all of this has been Shakespeare's, quite frankly. They've really taken it hard on this one, and I'm quite concerned with how it's affecting them. So I just wanted to bring that to everyone's attention. That's all I have. I think you're muted, Council.
Council, you're on mute.
Oh, there.
Thank you. Any discussion? Now, in your massive staff contact Rolodex, Susie, over the years that you've assembled, who are you calling on these issues within the corporation? Parks, I would assume, for the weed issue as an example? Yeah.
Steve Hasselman, he's, the contact for those kind of things. And actually, John Haight's been really wonderful with dealing with the dumped garbage issues. Anytime there is an issue, he is right out there right away to fix it, which has been fantastic. But we have been, sorry.
Have you talked to SEAT at all? Confirming
we've been going through economic development. So we've been directing all of our communications through them because they've been sort of dispersing it out for us. So Julia, I'm not sure if you can comment more on that because you're fully involved.
Yeah, I'd be happy to jump in on this. So for the committee's knowledge, Susie and I have been working directly together for months on this. In addition to my leadership in economic development, we've engaged with outreach and housing in healthy and safe communities. Parks has been looped in. Additional teams in public works have been looped in. We've engaged the security team from City Hall to assist on this. So there are a lot of different players who have been looped in. We have had staff meetings on this, and there are different pockets of work being done. Be happy to get a formal update to the committee at our next meeting. But we've been engaging to get the right people around the table to tackle this and to at least be attending Ferguson Station and assisting multiple times a week, if not daily. So Susie and I have been in regular contact about this.
Sorry, Susie, did you have anything else?
No, I just wanted
Okay.
to make sure that everyone was aware and ask that this become more of a priority for the city on a day-to-day basis to manage this problem. It's one of those things where I'm reporting it in, but it should just be something that they go to every morning and look and clean up if they have to. That would be great for me. It would eliminate a level of work that the BI is having to do.
I heard that, and then the other issue that you have with the BIA on the I think you said it was the Wednesday nights. So that's good. I'll follow up where I can, and certainly, you know, in the past with direction and guidance and suggestions from International Village BIA, we tried with the BIA. Mostly back in the day would program a lot out of there, and so did Susie, but there's only so many resources with the BIA. Carrie can attest to this as well, and so they chose to, let's try to see if we can get some third-party programming. We went through, I think it was ECDEV, definitely real estate, and tried to shortlist a few people to just animate it 4 or 5 nights a week, and therefore they're in charge. They can clean it and make sure, and on top of that, and the added bonus was the BIA would get programming, but never went anywhere. And eventually, unfortunately, and it maybe could have been, we could have all been a little more assertive in attracting that mandate. However, then the pandemic hit, and so it wasn't even on the radar. But because you brought this as a discussion item, I think we should also get that back on the radar, particularly as we are approaching spring and there are other people interested in animating and making a business of it, actually. So they'll benefit too. So thank you for that.
Can I add one more thing to that too? Sorry,
of course.
I think the biggest issue is the design of Ferguson Station. The area that's causing us the most problems is the area that's sort of hidden between the station and Shakespeare's. And I did talk to Shakespeare's and said, like, what would you think if the city just severed off this portion of the park, because we don't use it anyways. In all the years I've been here, I've used it once. Maybe that's something we could look at for development or more retail or something, because that's where everybody seems to be hanging out and causing these issues, because they are kind of hidden between Main and King off the beaten track. It's very easy to sort of hide away there. So just something else to keep in your mind as well.
We certainly know the area. Have we looked at that from a SEPTEB point of view? Have done a study, Dave, on that section? I know the police probably know it well too. It is a dark little enclave.
Yeah, so what we've done from the Hamilton Police side so far is, so I was approached by Susie about it, and then throughout the course of the summer. So I had action officers and then patrol officers as much as possible going down there to try to proactively police the area. We've also had our crime prevention branch go over and meet with Leo, the owner, and go through his property specifically just to kind of identify some of the potential shortcomings and whatever. So he is meeting with a security company, I think it was yesterday actually, to discuss maybe some options, more cameras and stuff like that. And I know that we have done a SEPTED on that property. To what the results of that were, I don't have it in front of me, but I can certainly get it. But yeah, it is an area that is somewhat problematic. One of our projects that we were using, like our bait bike, we deployed it a lot in that area because we were noticing an increase in bike thefts from the area. So that was an area that we really focused on. But it is like a dark area. I know there are lights there, obviously, but not necessarily maybe some of the enough for that specific area. It is a place where a lot of people like to kind of gather and congregate and loiter at all times of the year, actually, various hours of the day. But yeah, so we've been working with Leo specifically on that one, but then also there is the design of Ferguson Station itself that maybe we could look at. But again, we're more than happy to help out however we can.
Thank you. Susie, good?
Yeah, no, thanks everyone. Just wanted to bring that to your attention.
I got a few ideas wheeling around in my head, so we'll be in touch. On to the next item, encampment update. Is this you, Kelly? Not Kelly Beaton, but Kelly Barnett. You longtime members of the Cleanliness and Security Task Force will recognize Kelly as a graffiti expert, a cigarette butt expert. She is now an encampment expert. She is actually officially retired, but we secured her on a secondment mission. So it is always a pleasure to see you.
Thank you, Councillor. And it's so nice to be back working with the city and to actually see people. I feel since COVID, I've been in this little tiny room working away. So it's really great to see everybody. So one of the things that is in my portfolio is encampments. And I've dealt with encampments for a very, very long time in my career. They are very complex. They are very complicated. And as you know, there are a lot of discussions about encampments. So I'll give you a bit about what's going on. So there is an encampment response team, and that's a group of city reps from police, MLE, housing outreach, and parks. And we actually get together pretty much every day at 9 o'clock, and we discuss encampments. We discuss where they are. We discuss the housing options that are available, and any issues that are related to a specific encampment site, because each and every encampment site is different. They have unique challenges, and we need to look at those challenges, and we need to try to problem solve so that we can get a very successful outcome. So we meet and we do that. Then what happened in July 2020 is that an injunction was granted that prevented the city of Hamilton from removing encampment sites. And that meant we stopped our enforcement. But what it did is it resulted in quite a noticeable amount of encampments popping up throughout the city. One, for example, and I know you will be familiar with it, would be the Ferguson station. It was very, very large encampment. There was a lot of problems, lots of garbage, lots of debris, lots of people. So it was very, very challenging. Then what happened in around early October of that year, an agreement was reached and the injunction was lifted and a protocol was put in place, which permitted encampments to be in certain locations in the city, but with some restrictions. Like you can't be there for more than 14 days, you can't have more than 5 people, and you had to be certain distances between schools, daycares, etc. There were some challenges with that when we started to respond to encampments. Because there was a huge backlog, we needed more staff, which we were able to second to the positions. And then what started to happen is encampment occupants started to move around. So when we were successful in having them leave one location, they didn't take any available housing, but they would move to another location, usually a park. So we were kind of chasing our tails. And then there was the issue that there were more than 5 tents. And how do you identify more than 5 tents, who was there first, and enforce that? Then what happened was a motion was taken to council, and it supported that the agreement and the protocol would be null and void, and the city would go back to enforcing the parks bylaw. So what they did is they put MLE in the lead. It used to be housing outreach that used to take all the complaints and then coordinate efforts, but it came to municipal law enforcement. So what that meant was municipal law enforcement became the main line for complaints to come in. They responded to the complaints to identify if it was an encampment or not. And believe it or not, we get a ton of complaints where there's no encampments, whether or not the encampment was on city property or private property, and MLE deals with both. And then from there, what we did is we would notify outreach, and outreach would attend that site. And most times outreach already knew about the site even before we responded. And we talked about it in our morning meetings. We'd say, outreach, do you know about this site? Yeah, we're there, or no, we didn't. And they would attend, which was a really great outcome. And then what happened after that is we would go to an encampment site and we would try to seek voluntary compliance from the occupants, asking them to please leave, and housing would offer them housing options. And if they didn't voluntarily comply, then it would have to go to enforce the Trespass to Property Act, which is a police responsibility. Then the legal clinic applied for a second injunction, and that was in October. That was in October. And it took till early November for the courts to hear both sides of the story and determine whether or not they would allow the injunction or they would reject the injunction. And they rejected the injunction. And then staff were charged to go back and start enforcement of the parks bylaw. And that's what we have been doing to date. So when we get together every morning, we look at the encampments, and again, we look at the housing options. We identify what encampments we will be successful at helping the individuals and get voluntary compliance. And we have had some really, really great success moving forward. And I have received some comments from people. You know, I know neighborhoods are very upset about it on both sides. They're upset that people are living in encampment sites, sleeping rough, and they're upset that their parks are being taken up by people living in them. So we're moving forward slowly. Some of the larger encampment sites have a lot of challenges, not just with finding housing, but there's challenges where they have items and they need storage. And it's very difficult because when you first go there, you don't know what those challenges are going to be. So you can't go in overnight and come up with a strategy. You have to determine what the issues are, then come up with your strategy. So we're working on ways to find short-term storage for people. That's in the works right now. In the meantime, the Good Shepherd has stepped up. Certain individuals have stepped up and helped people with the storage items. You have people that have pets. And they don't want to leave their pets. And we have been able to talk to Animal Services, and Animal Services have offered from time to time to temporarily house people's pets so that they can get into a shelter or a housing option. But again, that's short-term measures that we are taking right now. So we have seen, since all of this started, a decrease in encampments. Right now, we are receiving probably upwards of 50 complaints of encampments a week. Our officers are getting to those encampments, and a lot of the encampments right now aren't the bigger ones. We've managed to resolve a lot of the bigger ones, and we're working on these smaller individual sized encampment sites that might have 1 or 2 tents, and that's where we are to date.
Thank you, Kelly. You could have went on another 3 hours on this issue. Steve, you're up first.
I could have.
Yes.
Thank you, Counselor. I guess I'm just curious, thinking in terms of cleanliness and security, would you say, Kelly, I mean, I drive by the encampments frequently enough, and I mean, clearly they're a mess. At least the vast majority of them are a mess. Would you say, from looking at sort of those two aspects of it, cleanliness and security, would the bigger issue be the mess, I guess is what I'm saying, or are there serious security concerns as well, whether it's towards area residents or businesses or towards, you know, each other within the encampment areas, that kind of thing? Or are both an equal priority, like, you know?
Well, that's an excellent question. So I'll tackle the cleanliness first. So yeah, so we have made progress, and I have received comments from people saying that they have noticed on some of these larger encampment sites have either totally disbanded or have scaled down. People approach our officers when they are out at these encampment sites working, saying they really appreciate the work that we're doing. So, but what we've done is park staff has been amazing, and so has waste management in stepping up and going around and emptying the litter containers and cleaning up the biohazardous materials, being needles and other things. So we are putting more efforts towards maintaining the parks as best we can prior to us being able to get in there and have full compliance of a encampment site. So it's an ongoing process. It does take time. As far as the security, that's a little bit out of my realm of expertise. I have heard some concerns about, you know, theft in areas, and whenever we get a complaint that neighborhoods are concerned about the behavior of occupants, it's immediately sent to either Hamilton Police or their social navigator program, and they respond accordingly. So they do take action when there's illegal activity going on in neighborhoods.
Just as a follow-up, I know, I mean, certainly in the last week or so, I mean, there's been some high-profile security concerns. I think of the JC Beamer uh, kerfuffle. I don't know. But is your sense, and I don't know if you'd know the answer to this, is your sense that those sorts of incidents where there's, you know, violence with police, I don't mean violence from police, I won't make any comment on that, but violence involving, you know, police and enforcement, that sort of thing, is that coming generally from the people living in the encampments, or does that seem to be a bigger issue with protesters and that sort of thing?
Well, I guess for JC Beamer, police were there to support city staff and their work environment. Our staff need to make sure that they have a very safe environment and they have a job to do. So police were there to ensure staff were safe. Also, there was a lot of garbage, debris, and with any encampment site, there's those biohazardous waste. So it was determined that police would set up a perimeter to protect the safety of our staff. I have not found many incidents where it has been an escalation like this. Most times staff approach this in a very respectful, compassionate manner towards encampment individuals. I cannot tell you how our people are working to help our most vulnerable population. However, I don't think a lot of people see the amount of work that staff are putting in, and that's everybody. It goes, excuse me, from police, MLE, outreach, parks, very compassionate approach while trying to achieve successful goals. I have not found in a lot of situations, I have not heard reports that encampment individuals are being overly aggressive. Excuse me. And our staff are certainly trained to de-escalate and work with people, understanding that there are complicated and complex issues associated with encampments.
When Inspector Michione was giving his report earlier, and he brought up the issue of encampments and contact with the residents of the encampments and what else, he made the comment that, and I should have asked him this at the time, but he made the comment that there'd been no, I forget how he worded it, but the implication I got was that there'd been no sort of physical contact and there'd been good compliance and that kind of thing. And again, of course, that would fly in the face of you know, reports on that kind of thing. That was sort of the reason why I was asking about your residents versus protesters and that sort of thing. So I just was curious as to what your understanding was of that. Just as one last, and I apologize, Councillor, is it okay if I just ask one last follow-up on this?
You go for it, Steve.
Okay, thanks. In terms of working with the encampment residents to try to find alternate arrangements and the work city staff is doing with that. I mean, certainly the impression I get, and this is more just based on, I guess, hearsay, not any particular professional knowledge that I have. The impression I get is that many of these residents don't want to go to alternate arrangements for a variety of reasons, and I won't speculate or try to list them. Is that your understanding as well, and is that making the job harder in the sense of you come and say, okay, well, we've got somewhere for you to go, and they say no, and then they just move somewhere else, even though there may have been something available, which of course just it becomes a cyclical issue. But
yeah, you're right, Steve. And so further to what you said about it being peaceful, our experience has when we're out there working with all city departments is that, yeah, it's peaceful, but that's because we're going in and we're taking the time. We don't go in there and we're not pulling people out of tents. We're going in there, we're finding out what the issue is. And sometimes it takes a long period of time for us to go through that process to ensure that the occupants understand that we are trying to help them. It's difficult for me to comment on the reasons why people wouldn't access alternative housing. There would be a whole bunch of reasons. You know, we even had a lady who didn't want to leave her cats. Totally understandable. They were her family. However, that's when we reach out and we start to problem solve that issue. We ask animal services, yeah, they'll take the cats, but she didn't want her cats to go into animal services care, and that was totally her her prerogative. So it is challenging. I don't have the answers why people don't want to take alternative housing, but it definitely is a challenge.
Sometimes, multiple times was the answer that Edward John, our outreach homelessness is 7 days a week. And I asked that question, Steve, in or a variation of it in committee not long ago. And Edward John, our director, had said, you know, every 7 days a week, we're out there outreaching. Beamer alone was in the 2 weeks prior to the explosion that led to the fire, that led to the kerfuffle, as you call it. That whole thing, you know, and the narrative on the, even I believe even one of the homeless individuals said, I've been here 6 months, no one's ever approached me. Well, we log all this stuff. And the reality was there'd been multiple times within the 2 weeks leading up, but 48, I think, was the number in total over just 2 months. That's how much outreach goes on. So there's evidence quite obviously that multiple times the person living in the tent, houseless, in the most inhumane and unsafe way, is saying, no, don't want it. I'm fine right here. Maybe being encouraged by some to do that. Maybe they have their own personal reasons. Kelly's right. Every case is different, but it's a really good question. And I think it gets to the heart of what we're actually dealing with, even in the winter now, with the announcement yesterday, some 80 are still out there encamped. But a really good discussion. And I'm glad you got a chance to ask them directly to our staff. Follow up there, Steve?
Yeah, a kerfuffle wasn't a great word to use. It sounds like I'm minimizing what went on. I was just trying to think of something more neutral to try to.
Kerfuffle is a very neutral word. I actually looked up kerfuffle in the dictionary yesterday because, as you know, we had a 4-hour debate on it. And how do you define? You know, all of us were defining it in different ways. So it might fit in ways. Anybody else on this for Kelly on the encampment issue? I think Steve's questions were good enough to sort of give us a really good idea from the staff side what's going on. And it definitely, the key word is challenge that she said, in finding the balance as well is key, because, you know, on August the 9th, I moved the motion. 11 councillors minus 3 of the 14 said we got to get back to enforcement. And we don't tell us councillors, people like Kelly, how to enforce. We just say, got to get back to enforcement. And you can tell in working with multiple divisions, their policy on this and others is a tactic of passion and compassion and understanding of the issues. And that, believe it or not, and I'll say this out loud because Kelly knows it and Kelly knows it too, that's to the chagrin of many residents and some business people who would like to see the encampment gone yesterday, right? They know this too. So that's the balance, and that's a big part of the challenge, but try to step off and let the experts do their thing. Although Kelly does take some suggestions from time to time. And thank you, Kelly. I don't know if you're still needed, but the graffiti update, it used to be you. Is it the other Kelly now? Okay. Hi, Kel. And thank you for
good morning, Councillor, and thank you for inviting me. Yes, I am. Kelly is retired, but I am the new Kelly Barnett. Used to be her old admin. So hopefully I can fill her shoes there. So in regards to graffiti, as you know, and I've met majority of you already on here, we do have a student program, which is an excellent program where there are 2 people that are hired on a yearly basis through a co-op, and they are dedicated to look after the graffiti within the city. So particularly in this ward, for Ward 2 and Ward 3, I did bring some stats today between private property, city, parks, utilities. So in Ward 2, for 2021, so far we've had a total of 215 site visits. Some of those were reactive, some of them are proactive throughout the city. For compliance numbers, we're hitting pretty good there. We're at 160 for gaining compliance in Ward 2. Currently, we have 55 files open. So those could be new files, those could be follow-up files. Currently, due to the weather, we are still out there issuing orders, but the compliance date for these orders will be extended till April of 2022 due to the weather and the ability to clean up with the temperatures. So that is for Ward 2. When I look at Ward 3, again, the private property, city, parks, and utilities for 2021, we've come in at 159 files. This one is spectacular at compliance of 134. So we're up there with 25 current open files. So this is an ongoing thing with the students. They report on a regular basis, and we take graffiti very serious, as you know, within our department. And depending on what type of graffiti it is, we have action plans to action all of it on a daily basis. So that's my report for today. If you have any questions, I'm open to that. Or Kelly will be open to that if I don't know the answer.
There's always at least one graffiti question.
I
Steve,
know.
Steve, for the new Kelly B, he calls you. Sounds like a rap band.
Yes.
So it's like Cardi B, I guess, but you know.
Maybe.
Oh, Cardi B, Kelly B. We're both Kelly B's, so.
Sorry, Steve. Did you?
Do you
That was
have a
my
question? No. Oh,
entertaining
okay.
throw to you. Oh, I saw it. It says from Steve to
Oh no,
everyone.
I thought for a second there you thought I had a question, which I don't, but I had
Oh.
put that comment in the chat earlier just when
Oh,
we
the
were
new Kelly
introducing
B.
it. Yeah.
I'm glad you're
Well, thank
enjoying
you,
this,
Steve.
Stu. Stu's watching us like a TV show right now.
This is great.
Susie. It's Susie.
Hi, Kelly and Kelly. I miss you, Kelly.
Hi.
And hi, Kelly. I guess at the end of the day, I have a little bit of, and I've brought this up several times before with the stats on graffiti, because a lot of times the graffiti just does not get reported in. So it's kind of hard to say, oh yeah, there's only this amount, but I know for a fact that there's a lot more in our area that happens that we, the BIA, will go out and try to help the businesses get down, and they're not necessarily getting reported in. We have been trying to do a biannual graffiti audit that we do send in to Kelly. And Kelly, I'm wondering, is that included in the stats when we're talking the stats for this?
Is it the biannual report that you send in?
Yeah.
To be honest, I don't know if that's included. These are strictly that were given to me from the officer.
Yeah.
So if you're, yeah, I don't believe that they would be in this, which I haven't seen that report.
Okay, we'll make sure that you get the next round of them for sure.
Thank you.
So, but yeah, it's hard for me when we're talking about stats to fully believe that those are the complete numbers. That's all over the years we've seen.
Yeah.
You know, it's hard to really tackle.
No, I would appreciate that. If you can send that to me, then definitely in the next one, I will include, you know, what all the efforts are that all of you are doing on your own, as well as what we are doing.
Okay, great. I can tell you we do have a person that we contract out to remove graffiti from the public realm. So just to keep it off the receptacles, the boxes and things like that. It is quite a costly, cost to the BIA, but it's something that we think worthy of doing. So a lot of the times, again, we try to get it down before it gets up, and it's not necessarily reflective of what's going on. So just wanted to bring that up.
I understand that. No, thank you, Susie.
Any other questions for Susie? Okay, Steve, go ahead.
Just a quick one. I know over the years, especially what was it, about 4 years ago or so, I mean, there was a rash of kind of more of the serial graffiti on the deucer and, you know, all that. I think was that his tag. Sort of give him attention again, but are we back to normal, which is just a lot of graffiti, or are we finding that still continues to be a major concern? I don't know if this is a question for Kelly ultimately or Susie, but probably Kelly.
To be honest, I haven't found that to be that type of serial graffiti. It's just been generalized from what I've been told so far. If that's different, I can definitely get back to you on that.
I think it has been somewhat serial. We do see a lot of the same tags across the BIA continuously. So I would have to say, yes, I do think it still is one of those things, their claim to fame. And yeah, we definitely notice repetition in our BIA for sure of different tags, not necessarily the ones that were before, but newer ones that we're trying to figure out even what they say. So, but continuous.
So from that point of view, then, is this something then that police can continue to be involved with, much like they were in that case, you know, whenever I'm forgetting now, but like 4 or 5 years ago, and trying to track down who it was and identify them and all that kind of thing? Is that sort of the ongoing project's not the word, but you know, effort, or again, as we sort of back to, we've got a lot of graffiti, it's unfortunate, and we try to get it reported and removed, sort of thing?
Yeah, and I think right now as well, with regards to like COVID and whatnot, there's a lot of time on people's hands out there that they're out there doing this. So definitely, I think the police have a big part in it, and we have a dedicated person, as you know, that deals with anything with regards to that, hate and crime and those serial ones. So unfortunately, I don't have the stats on that because it's not, we get reported just as a specific graffiti, not a certain tagger. So.
Okay, no one else. Thank you very much, Kelly B. and Kelly B.
Thank you, Councillor.
Barton and James North. Issues at who's tackling this one? Carrie, as clerk, I did get to your agenda script that you sent today. I don't have anybody underneath that header to offer this report. I can tell you as
Councillor,
councillor.
I'm just sorry, Councillor. I was just looking up who sent the issue.
Okay, thanks. As councillor, it may be that you this is an issue that a couple of the constituents in recent days have reached out to me on, and you may have been redirected. Somebody from staff may have thought it important to bring it to this committee because we deal with security. Joel, I did see your hand. Is it a garbage issue or a waste issue?
I believe it is.
Oh, thank you.
believe I seen an email a little bit ago. Yes, from Stu. I saw you put your hand up there.
You go, Joel, you finish it and I'll go to Stu.
Yeah, no, not a problem. I believe it was from Stu, and I think it was in regards to some waste at the corners of this location.
Okay, thanks, Stu. Sorry I missed that email. You probably
No.
CC'd me, but go ahead.
Well, actually, I think I was just responding to, I think it was your note, Councillor Farr, about hotspots or areas that might be of interest. So I think I just responded with two that are close to me, which are, the corner of James and Barton continues to be an issue. And then since the community fridge went in on John at Barton, which is a great thing, there's been a significant kind of increase in, I'd say, trash accumulation around that area.
Thank you. And your answer kind of helped me here. Carrie, through me, both 10.5 and 10.6 are in answer to that call out, and Stu did answer. And so they all fall under one header. So for housekeeping purposes, the next time we approve an agenda, I'll call you on that, Carrie. But was there anybody else? And then we could all sort of maybe have a discussion. Joel is here. He has patiently waited for us. Manager of waste. Sorry, Joel. Title?
Manager of Waste Collections.
Waste Collections. Thank you. And certainly can help answer any questions. I bug Joel all the time about, and I shouldn't. I should go to who should I call? Who should we call, Joel?
It's okay. You can send it to me.
All right. McNabb Tunnel has been just terrible. I totally agree with Barton and James. It was actually the mission has done a really good job lately in their section of sidewalk, but they had some huge challenges beyond their control for a couple of months there, Stu, as you probably know. That's also, and the reason why I was a little confused, is a hot spot for questions that come with respect to pedestrian safety, notwithstanding all of the work that we've done in infrastructure to try to make it safer. Cars coming west, taking that left at James are scaring people. So anyway, on the waste thing, so those ones, and I know our BIAs as well regularly send hotspots. Anybody with any others that maybe Joel needs to be aware of, whether they be laneways, private property, public property? Stu?
I was just going to add one clarification because I believe Joel, you sent an email and I didn't respond to it, so apologies. Just for clarification, whether it was dumping or just general trash. And I would say, in my observation, that James and Barton, it's both. I've noticed at different times there'll be just broken furniture and mattresses will just magically appear, especially in front of that laundromat. It seems to be a collection point. And then related to the community fridge, because it's out front of, I think it's Merritt's facility there is a driveway just north of that. Ironically, that's kind of goes into where my parking area is, and it seems to be quite dark in there. So I think a lot of people are going in there and they're consuming stuff in the fridge and just leaving the garbage there. Or I've noticed now on garbage days, we'll find like just bags of recycling just opened up and strewn all over the place there.
That's definitely the definition of a hotspot. Joel, it's a great community initiative, effort anyway from volunteers, but there's obviously an effect on cleanliness. So is there something we can do to get in touch with those organizers and make some suggestions at the very least to make sure cleanliness is maintained?
Yeah, even a receptacle, because I don't think there's a garbage receptacle right there.
That's the first. That's the first thing.
Yeah, I can take that back and take a peek and see about installing a garbage unit at that location as well. The corner of James and Barton and this area on John Street with the community fridge is identified as a hotspot within downtown cleanliness. So it is focused on a regular basis to clean, more so this more so moving forward. And in regards to the illegal dumping, we have a proactive process with our waste management bylaw officers when it comes to illegal dumping, and I will have them go to the area in the downtown and focus from this proactive perspective and to see whether or not we can catch the individuals who may be illegal dumping and or see how much we can solve that problem moving forward. But we've seen some good success, some great success actually in other BIAs where we've started this proactive work. And I think we could probably see that in this location as well.
And Stu, I think Tim's been too busy, and he may have already formally resigned from this committee, Potasek. So since you're in the area, and we just heard our manager say, call him anytime. If you directly call Joel, I can guarantee you, it's never been the case when I directly call him, and it's often that it doesn't get handled right away. So at the very least on, the beds and stuff that are out front the laundromat, I guarantee within hours, if you give a direct call to Joel. I'll give you his cell phone number immediately following this meeting.
Just offline would be nice. Let's
offline, yeah, for sure. Anyone else? Susie.
I just wanted to direct one thing to Joel too, just while I have a second. We've noticed, and this is an ongoing conversation of this committee, that the residential residents above the businesses have been dumping garbage way more lately. So just wanted to put that on your radar that perhaps we can get bylaw involved again, because it's been a real issue in the area. It seemed to be cleaned up there for a little bit, but over the last year, it's gotten really bad again.
No problem. So I will connect with you to get more of an idea of the areas and possible locations that you can direct us to, and I will speak to our bylaw and we can have a proactive approach to this area with this issue.
Okay, great. Thank you.
No problem.
Anybody else?
As a positive, I have seen your propelled vacuum things around a lot. So
they're gluttons.
Yeah. So kudos.
They're great. They're absolutely wonderful units that I think we've had them for about 2 years now. Time's going really fast. I don't remember anymore, but they do a wonderful job of picking up the litter, but also the small litter, the cigarette butts, things that are difficult to get with this a rake and a broom. So those are great units. Absolutely wonderful.
I have to say those were announced at this. Oh, I'm sorry.
No,
I didn't.
No, it's on topic and for clarity. Go ahead, Steve.
Those were announced to this committee before they went in, and I saw one recently, and it was just neat to see. What we were looking forward to is in place, and thank you for making that happen.
For sure.
No, not at all. No problem.
Paula. I was really hoping. No audio, Paula. I feel bad there. Maybe she can just write the header in the chat again, if you don't mind, Paula, and then I'll go to it in a minute. And in the meantime, I'll fill since we have no one else. But I watch me grill Joel, and he'll answer probably by memory. How many specific to downtown FTEs do we have from waste from your division for cleanliness?
Yeah, so we have, looking at it from a different level of staffing. So we have laborers. We have approximately 5 laborers that are out on a regular basis who are collecting manual litter. We have what we call operator wastes. Operator waste, it's just a different classification of position, but that position can operate like a waste collection vehicle, but also operate the other units such as the sidewalk sweeper that we have. We have 2 of those sidewalk sweepers, one new from approximately a year and a half ago, came around the same time the gluttons. So much more reliable because the other ones were a little bit iffy and would break down more often than not. We also, so those operators as well, and there's approximately 7 of those operators waste. They're able to do all of the work that is in the downtown core, whether it's manual litter collection, drive a garbage truck to pick up illegal dumping, collect from alleyways, operate the sweepers like I mentioned, or the gluttons. We also have on top of that our lead hands and our staff that go out and collect the litter containers on a daily basis.
And John Haight is just fabulous, and I know our BIAs deal direct, but safe to say that with all that firepower, women and men doing really great things downtown, it's still helpful to hear from us from time to time on hotspots and things that they may have missed while out there, which is not often. Okay.
I absolutely would love to hear the hotspots, and please feel free to email me because then we can put that on a hotspot list. One of the initiatives we've been moving forward to utilize GIS in a way in waste management. So we've been creating GIS programs for route management, moving from paper to electronic, identifying our assets and types of assets within GIS from a litter container perspective. I want to try to implement, if it's possible, a hotspot identifier within our internal GIS work. That way you can identify hotspots, with, for example, in the downtown core. That way we know when we're deploying staff and when we're for training new staff or what have you, our routes can be built around hotspots and, for example, go to McNabb Tunnel more than once a day. We hit McNabb Tunnel at least twice a day for that cleaning, but if we get the information from you guys, that will definitely help for sure with our strategy.
Thanks, Joel. Paula in chat, resident recycling causes garbage issues in the city. Residents set out garbage in small bins with no lids on windy nights, and it's blown all around. Not specific to the downtown, it's all around, especially on the windy nights, but I think she'd like a comment on that.
Yeah, not a problem. So what our bylaw does allow tops or lids to be placed on the blue boxes. We don't supply as a city of Hamilton, but it is allowed. What we have done to help address this problem is more recently our blue boxes, we've purchased the larger blue boxes. They're much taller than the original ones that were given out years back. So the idea is to hope keep it deeper, and so it can't necessarily as much blow out. We also educate residents as much as we possibly can through either the calendar or social media or PSAs about wind and windy days, and putting any waste that they have out perhaps the morning of before 7 a.m. if it's a windy day, so it's not caught by the wind during the night and blown away. So there's some tactics and steps that we do have in place, and we place on the website as well for residents to visit and hopefully manage that as well.
Paula also says no enforcement on bins out before 7 p.m. Like the question is, can you comment on, how are we enforcing that city bylaw? Right, Paula?
Oh, I see. So thumbs up. That's great. So no enforcement on bins that were put up before 7 p.m. The morning or the day before, basically, is what you're
She's not
indicating.
seeing it. It's a good question. Like, how does that work? Is it working? Are we doing it? Where are we doing it in the core? Would be a good, whatever you can offer.
Yeah, not a problem. What I would have to do is go back and have a conversation with superintendent and my supervisor of bylaw to find out. I don't know any stats in regards to enforcement before 7 p.m. So
It's actually another really good point.
I can report back to that.
Yeah, I think it's a good future discussion, actually, Paula. That's a really good point. And then it gives Joel some time. So maybe next meeting we could get a little follow-up on that one.
Not a problem.
All right. Thank you, Joel. Anyone else? That will be it then. Thank you again. I really appreciate some really good discussion and questions and comments. And Susie.
Sorry, I just wanted to ask if we can next year get back to quarterly meetings again, just with everything going on. I think this is a really important committee right now.
Absolutely. Carrie, you caught that as our.
I caught that.
So
I
feel
will
free to.
highlight it, and we can either work out some meeting dates or create them on the fly.
Yes, absolutely. I was surprised I didn't hear from any of you suggesting that we roll again, since last November was last we met, but we're ready to get back at it, as Susie has suggested here. And I'm glad I had that opportunity to get everybody together again. We were definitely due for a catch up, and it's undoubtedly an important a meeting. I just want to end with the roll call, since I did not have the agenda at the offset. Councillor Nan sent regrets, and Carrie, who was the other?
The other was Cameron, and also I received regrets from someone else during the meeting.
Tim. Was it Tim?
It was Tony.
Oh, right. Okay. Thank you. Just wanted to get that on the record. Motion to any motions? There's no motions. Notices of motions. Seeing none. General info, none. I'm just glad we talked about encampments today. I really especially appreciated those comments, and Kelly is well versed. The one thing we didn't promote, though, is that it's just not getting promoted enough, and it should be, especially now. We've housed, Steve, especially 500 homeless individuals and families during this pandemic. 500. I was at a BIA meeting, downtown BIA meeting, just a few months ago, and we had a staff sergeant say folks were coming from regions outside of Hamilton to Hamilton because of this encampment issue. And so if you're wondering how can we still be at 80 or 90, it's become it unfortunately, clearly from those comments, dozens and dozens, this officer said, were coming into town. It became a regional destination for a while there, which made this enforcement that council asked for on August 9th increasingly harder. And that's part of the challenge that Kelly was talking about too. But we've done everything. And in our downtown, shelters out of the FOC, COVID recovery shelters for homeless, all over the core. There's been different locations. And like Kelly said, outreach are out there 7 days a week, multiple times. And their work is nationally recognized. So we do a very good job per capita, better than any city in Canada. And no one ever challenges me on that from whatever side of this argument. So it's true. It's just not covered. The other side of this, there are much greater challenges in this city than most. So thank you for that. Thanks for letting me go on that rant. Move to adjourn. Stu, seconded by Steve. All in favor? Carried. Thank you.
Happy holidays, everyone.
Happy holidays. Take care. Thank you.
See you next year.